Hey, kia ora everyone, Coach Ray here. Now this is a do-over. Now I didn't record or didn't have my screen being displayed, so there was no slides in the recording that I'm going to send out to the people that missed the presentation, and also the people that viewed the presentation can rewatch with seeing all the slides. So without further ado, let's move into how to incorporate boost training into your cycle training. Okay, we're going to be discussing a few things today, but primarily it's looking at boost training, what it is, how does boost training affect your training, and how to incorporate boost training into your training plan. But before we get into all of that, who am I? Now, I've been coaching professionally since 2000. I specialise in coaching beginner and recreational athletes to achieve their sporting as well as their health and fitness goals. I've coached a range of people, primarily cyclists and triathletes, but in terms of cyclists, both road and mountain bikers. And because my background is primarily as a triathlete, and even though I've done plenty of cycling and been involved with some of the top tier cycling teams here in New Zealand. Yeah, so as an athlete, I've done many cycle centuries around Lake Taupo, or the Lake Taupo Cycle Challenge here in New Zealand, Abel Tasman Cycle Challenge, Great Ride, as well as many other cycling events, both on and off road. In the triathlon world, I've done Ironman in Taupo 6 times, as well as Challenge Wanaka, which used to be a full distance iron distance event, which it was when I did it. So without further ado, let's start looking at, well, actually, there's me and my partner, Rachel. That's on a mission up in the Nelson Lakes National Park, which is just up the road from where I live in usually sunny Nelson, where I can't even see the beach today, which I often can from the kitchen table. And the hills are surrounded with clouds, and it's just been raining heavy drizzle all day long today, which is unusual, but it's the time of the year for that, with it being winter, the middle of winter here in New Zealand. That's my daughter. She loves getting up into the hills with me. She's a little bit bigger than she is in that photo there these days, and there is me competing. So today's agenda: what is boost training? We'll talk about intensity, and then how boost training affects your training, and how to incorporate boost training into your overall training plan. So what is boost training? Now, having a nice cool acronym, boost, would have been really good. BOOST, something specific training, maybe, I don't know. I tried sitting down and making up something cool to use it as an acronym, but the reality is it's boosting your performance, and that's where I derived the name from for boost training. And it involves including specific intervals and recovery and appropriate intensities to ensure your body adapts quickly to the physiological demands and has you riding faster and more powerfully in a short period of time. Now, some of the key things in there are the intensity. It has to be at the right intensity. If you're not at the right intensity, you're not going to get the physiological response that we're after from that workout, and so therefore you're not going to get the benefit. And it's important that you recover and get that recovery at the right intensity as well. If you don't recover, you aren't going to get the results that you're trying to achieve. So it's important that we hit those intensities correctly and appropriately based on your level of fitness. So intensity. 5 levels of intensity that I use there, 1 through to 5. Nice and simple. Level 1, low intensity. Recovery purposes only. I don't really prescribe this very often, sometimes as recovery within a very tough workout or as part of a cool down from that tough workout. So typically not used at all. If you're riding along at level 1 intensity, you're going to be comfortably talking to anyone, any training partner you might have. Very low speed, low effort. Level 2, now excuse me, excuse me, sneeze coming on. A sneeze gone now. So level 2, endurance intensity. So similar sort of thing, you can ride along comfortably at level 2, have a conversation with a training partner, spinning the legs over at 90 revolutions per minute or high or above that. You can have that conversation with a training partner, no problems at all. When we step up to level 3, conversation comes into sentences, and you need to catch your breath a little bit between sentences, but you can still hold that conversation. When we get up into the threshold intensity, level 4, breathing is a lot deeper. It's trying to suck in a lot more oxygen. You're only able to get a few words out at a time, and then you really need to catch your breath between those few words. You're working at a lot higher intensity. And then at the top end of the spectrum at level 5, VO2 max is your main focus is sucking in oxygen. You can get a few grunts and groans out, but nothing much more than that. When we look at how we measure that intensity, do we want to use power or heart rate? Now, if we don't have the opportunity to use a power meter, then heart rate is the next best alternative. But power is by far the superior option. It is a measure, or in some cases, depending on the power meter you're using, an estimation of the work and therefore the intensity that you're doing. It's as the intensity changes, so does the power. 200 watts is always going to be 200 watts regardless of other factors. When we look on the other side of the fence at heart rate, it is the poor cousin. It is a measure of the body's response to intensity, and there's a delay in that response. So if you were cruising along and then you put in a big sprint, your heart rate isn't going to respond on the dime like power will. There will be the delay as your heart rate slowly builds up to the intensity that you were riding at to generate that response. If you're doing a max sprint, you might have finished the sprint and started recovering from that sprint before the heart rate even gets close to it, in which case it will start, it'll continue climbing for a little bit and then descending without actually getting up to the true intensity that you were sprinting at, whereas the power certainly will do that right from the outset. The other problem with heart rate is it's impacted by a whole raft of different things. How fatigued you are, your level of recovery, how well fueled you are, what type of fuel as well, your level of hydration, the quality of sleep you've had, which links into the fatigue and level of recovery as well. Stimulants, caffeine, prescription, and other stimulants all play a role on the heart rate. Now, I said 200 watts is still 200 watts, and you might argue that 150 beats per minute heart rate is still 150 beats per minute heart rate, but that 150 could actually be 155 or 160 beats per minute that's been suppressed by something down to 150, or it might be 145 or 140 beats per minute that have been falsely increased up to that 150. So it's not always going to be a reliable indicator depending on what else is happening. So power is where it's at and is always going to be the best measure at this stage. Who knows what technology will be invented in the future. So how do we determine what power, how many watts, what heart rate to ride at? So primarily I use a functional threshold power or an FTP test to determine the power intensity or power levels for people to ride at. And after a warm up and some primer intervals and then some 5 minutes of pre-fatiguing or a 5-minute effort to pre-fatigue you, and then recovering from that, riding hard for 20 minutes, taking the average power from that 20 minutes and multiplying that by 0.95 or 95% of that average power will give you your functional threshold power. From that, you can then calculate the various levels, 1 through to 5, in terms of what they relate to and the amount of watts. If you're using heart rate, then I utilize the Carmichael field test, which involves 2 8-minute intervals after a warm-up, obviously, and with some recovery in between. Looking at those 2 8 minutes, taking the average heart rate from both of them and seeing which one's higher, and then taking the highest. That's going to be a good indicator of what your threshold heart rate is going to be. Those links there, which I'll include in a follow-up email, will give you full details of the workouts and how to utilize their numbers from them. So when we look at the intensities, if we're wanting to work out our level 2 intensity based on power, we'd take 56 to 75% of our functional threshold power, work out what those numbers are, and it might be 222 watts through to 258 watts. And so we know that when we're trying to ride at level 2, we're wanting to spend as much time as possible between or within that range and without going above or below it. The same applies for heart rate, except we're working at slightly different percentages there for to get the physiological responses out of it that we want. Moving on, how does boost training work? Now there's 3 key intensities that we include in the training. There's level 2 endurance, level 4 threshold, and level 5 VO2 max. And I'll talk more in depth about those intensities shortly, and going through and giving you some example workouts as well. But the priority is put where you'll get the most development based on your current abilities. So sometimes in boost training, I won't include any threshold work for some people. We'll just focus on building their endurance and having some VO2 max efforts there to improve their top end. And that will give them the greatest benefit rather than tiring them out by giving them some threshold intervals that they're not recovering from overall training load and therefore not getting the benefits of the overall program. So it all depends on where you're currently at the moment. So when we look at the level 2 intensity, being one of the 3 key intensities for boost training, the main focus of level 2 is endurance, and training at that intensity, it's going to develop the efficiency of your heart and lungs, growing particularly the left ventricle in the heart, which pumps the blood around the body so it can pump more blood with each beat, improving the efficiency of the lungs as well, which means that you can draw more oxygen out of the environment, or a greater amount of air into the lungs. If there's more air, there's more oxygen in the lungs, so therefore we can draw more of that into the bloodstream and ship that around the body to where it's needed. Training at level 2 intensity is going to develop the ability to pump more blood with each beat, and as a result, more oxygen with each beat is going to end up getting to the working muscles where it can fuel effectively the muscle fibers. Also concurrently at the same time, we're going to increase the density of the mitochondria within the muscle fibers. Now mitochondria is an organelle that's inside the muscle fiber itself, and it's effectively the powerhouse where energy is converted into a usable form with oxygen and also either carbohydrates or fats fueling the process, so that the muscles have got the energy to contract. And all these changes mean you can recover better and your training doesn't feel so hard. So as you get more efficient, everything just starts getting easier. So that is the key benefit of training at level 2 or the endurance zone. So a large amount of the training is structured within boost training is at the endurance intensity. So we have the long bike ride, we have the warm-ups and cool-downs at level 2. Even recovery between hard intervals is done at level 2. So the bulk, 80% of training from boost training, give or take a little bit, is done at level 2 intensity. The next key intensity I'm going to talk about is level 5 VO2 max. And training at this intensity is going to develop the ability to clear lactic acid out of the body quickly. It's going to give you the ability to tolerate high levels of lactic acid, and it's going to increase the high-end intensity. So it might be that holding, let's say 350 watts for 2 minutes used to be tough. We might be able to increase from 350 to 360, even 375 or 380 as well has been seen. So we're moving that top end, so we're moving that higher up, which means that the lower intensities are going to be at a higher proportion, at a lower proportion, which makes the training easier. So these changes in your body allow you to ride very hard and recover quickly from high-end intensities. So that provides a benefit to cyclists. So it might be trying to stay with a bunch on the hill or win a sprint, those sort of things where you're working at that higher intensity. If you can recover from them quickly, you can push on a lot easier. The next key intensity, level 4, is your threshold intensity. Training at that intensity is going to develop a range of things, but primarily it's the ability to minimize lactic acid production whilst riding hard, as well as the ability to clear that lactic acid whilst you're still riding hard. So you don't need to cruise and recover. You can clear that lactic acid whilst you're still riding hard. Effectively, this intensity is at the same level where your body is clearing the lactic acid just as quick as it's producing it. The more time we spend at this intensity, the better the body is going to get at clearing that lactic acid whilst you're working hard. However, you are limited as to how much time you can spend there. Spend too much time there, you're obviously going to need a lot more time to recover. So, in a nutshell, those changes to your body are going to allow you to suffer. Pure and simple. It's going to allow you to suffer. And some of you may even enjoy doing it. Not everyone though. So to incorporate boost training into your training plan, you need to be doing a minimum of 3 workouts a week. First one, the most important, is going to be the long ride. What's long is going to be dependent on what your current level of ability is. So building up from where you're currently able to go, if you can comfortably ride for 3 hours, then we're wanting to build that just a little bit longer, develop the system just that little bit more. Some of you might only be an hour or even less. The important thing is you're not trying to jump from a 30-minute long ride to 3 hours in the space of a week. You want to just build it up a little bit at a time. When you're comfortably going for a long ride that's a few hours long, making it 15 minutes longer is no drama, but adding 15 minutes onto a 30-minute ride is basically an extra 50%. And so it's important to build up slowly and progressively from your current ability. The second key session there that I include for people doing 3 workouts a week is a VO2 max workout, and I'll talk in detail about those sessions before. Shortly I'll talk about them. I did talk about them before this morning without my screen being broadcast to everyone. So a VO2 max workout, you're working at that level 5 intensity, you're maxing out, giving everything you've got to basically move the needle at the top end of your range. So you get a lot of training benefits from that. So that's why that's the second most important ride of the week. Now the third ride, depending on your ability as to what I get you to do. If you can comfortably ride longer than 2 hours, I get you to do threshold intervals. If you're not riding comfortably over 2 hours yet, then I get you to include another steady or recovery ride to help, once again, at level 2. So it's working on building that endurance as we increase the duration of that long ride. So you're getting better and better at that. So an example of a VO2 max workout, start with a warm-up for 10 minutes at level 2, and then we're going to do, I almost said 3 reps, we're going to do 6 repetitions where you're riding hard at level 5 for 3 minutes with 3 minutes recovery at level 2, spinning the legs out, keeping those legs ticking over, 90 plus revolutions per minute. Then once you've done all 6, moving into a 10-minute cool down at level 2 and then doing some stretching. Now that link there will take you through to full details of that description. I'll include that in an email I'll send out to everyone after this. The next workout there is a threshold session where we spend, once again, 10 minutes warming up at level 2. But then the intervals themselves, this time are a bit longer. They're 6 minutes long. We're only doing 4 of them, and they're at a lower intensity at level 4. Between each rep, we only have 2 minutes to recover as well. That's at level 2. So the key difference is here, you're working at a lower intensity, and you've got less time to recover between. So with the VO2 max workouts, we've got a 1-to-1 work to rest ratio. So we're spending 3 minutes at level 5 and then 3 minutes recovering at level 2. This time we're spending a full 6 minutes at level 4 going hard and then only 2 minutes recovering. So the recovery is going to be incomplete. We're not going to have as much time and we're going to be working for longer prior to getting that recovery. So that's one of the key benefits of this session. It allows you to generate the ability to clear that lactic acid even while still working hard. So if you're not fully recovered when you start the second, third, or fourth rep, that's good, because it's teaching your body how to clear the lactic acid whilst it's still got plenty floating through the system. And then obviously at the end of it, finish with a 10-minute cool down riding at level 2 and some stretching. Once again, that link will take you through to full details of that workout, and I'll include that in a follow-up email that I send out after this. So when planning your week, spread the sessions out over the week. If you're doing 3 workouts a week, spread them out Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. If you've got 4 workouts a week, weekend have 2 workouts, Saturday, Sunday, back to back, and then have the other 2 workouts spread with a day off in between them. So basically the week starts day off, day on, day off, day on, day off, day on, day on, and then we're back around and having a day off again. So we're always having basically 1 day off between workouts, with the exception of the weekend where you're doubling up. Hard, easy, hard, hard, and then easy again. If you've got time for 5 workouts a week, once again, we'd look at filling up the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, day off on Monday, 3 days on, then Friday off. 2 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on, 1 day off. Rotating through the weeks that way. Make sure you have a dedicated rest day during the week as well. I typically plan that for Friday for most of the athletes I coach. The Friday rest, I do get all my athletes to do some stretching, whether it's a yoga session or a dedicated stretching session that I prepare for them. Either way, they're working on enhancing their recovery and also maximizing their performance as a result. I definitely don't recommend doing hard sessions on back-to-back days. Alrighty. Before I go into any questions, and because there's no one here listening to this live, I won't have questions coming in, but if you do have questions, feel free to send them through via email or through Facebook. Those have been my preferred 2 methods, but you can contact me, all the details down the bottom there, through my website, www.coachray.nz, my membership site, www.qwik.com. Make sure you spell Qwik correctly for my business. I chose a unique spelling, which is Qwik, Kiwi, qwikkiwi.com. Facebook on Coach Ray at qwikkiwi.com, and Twitter at Coach Ray NZ. On Instagram, I'm at Coach_Ray_NZ, and Strava, simply Coach Ray Qwik Kiwi Coaching. Now, I've got my faster cycling Tour de France challenge. Now, this runs for the duration of the Tour de France. It starts properly with the first ride on Saturday, same day as the Tour de France riders kick off, and goes through for 3 weeks, finishing on the Sunday, same day as the peloton rolls into Paris. It does actually start on Friday with a rest day and dedicated stretching, and is based around your current level of ability. Unlike the Tour de France, you're not going to be riding nearly every day over those 3 weeks. They only have 2 rest days. If you're currently riding 3 days a week, I'll keep you riding 3 days a week. If you're riding 6 days a week, I'll keep you riding 6 days a week and provide workouts for you for that. Over the period of the program, you've got access to my fortnightly coaching calls. You'll get the Faster Cycling Training Bible emailed to you, dedicated Coach Ray Qwik Kiwi coaching support group, Garmin Fit files, Zwift files as well for all the bike workouts. And you get a whole lot of access to a lot of the cycling related, and if you're interested, swimming and running related material in my website as well. For the package, valued of over $448 worth of products and services, and I'm doing that as a bit of a special. If you sign up today or tomorrow, closing this down on Thursday New Zealand time, it's only going to be $47, saving you over $400. It's all at no risk, and if you don't improve your functional threshold power, you'll get a full 100% money back guarantee. And that's something I stand by. I am that confident that you will improve your FTP over the duration of the Tour de France simply by following my Faster Cycling Tour de France challenge and following the principles of this boost training that I do. So if you're interested in that, go to www.qwikkiwi.com/sign-up as listed there and get on board quickly, because like I said, I'm shutting this down tomorrow. The first workout, which is the flexibility training, on Friday, so you're fresh and ready for a functional threshold power test on Saturday, and then into it for the next 3 weeks through of the Tour de France. So anyway, I'll leave you to it. Have a great day wherever in the world you are watching this, and I look forward to hearing from you. If you do have any questions, feel free to drop me a message on Facebook or drop me an email. Thanks for watching.